there was reparations for Japanese Americans.
Mm-hmm.
The money went to those Japanese Americans who were wrongly incarcerated. They were put in concentration camps. It's unbelievable.
Yeah.
But they got the reparations. No one who was enslaved is alive to receive those reparations. So we've got to come up with a theorem of well, he had a kid and he had a kid and he had a kid, and the institutional thing. Therefore, it's going to happen.
Correct.
Even if we came up with that system, which I don't think is even workable, I worry about the amnesty problem.
Yeah.
It goes like this. Ronald Reagan said, all right, we got all these illegals here. We're going to give them amnesty. But from now on, there'll be no more letting anybody in. Well, that never worked.
Right.
All right. And if you said to me, all right, we're going to take all this great society stuff, this wealth, this transfer that has gone largely to minority communities, and we're going to stop it, and instead we're going to do one big bulk payment. Everybody gets their 40 acres and a mule, whatever the equivalent is now. You're telling me that welfare as we know it goes away, or these other wealth transfers that keep growing and growing and growing go away? I don't believe it.
I mean, it's hard to believe that right now because we don't execute very well when it comes to policy, right? I mean, we just don't. Right. So yeah, I know it's hard, so, and I don't know exactly, what the answers are or anything like that. But the difference between sort of making restitution to the Japanese Americans for the internment camps, it was a limited period of time. It was an identifiable group that had been harmed. And I think the country had grown some in terms of, sort of understanding the damage and the unfairness of those kinds of acts, and that if you take somebody's home and you take their possessions and, rob them of their livelihoods, that there was a real harm, and in real time you can make up for it. Like, I just think the country in, the 1930s or 40s and what it was like in 1865 or even 1925 is different. It was easier to sort of figure out how to do that because it was clearly wrong. I mean, presidents have said that and historians too. So it's kind of different. Like I understand the complexities.
It was wrong not because presidents or historians said it.
Yeah, it was just wrong,
it was
right?
Wrong.
But just because it's hard doesn't mean that it can't be done. That's what I say when it comes to sort of figuring out how to redress, centuries of subjugation, abuse, and theft of labor, and therefore theft of wealth. There is something real about that, and we got to come to terms with it. And hopefully, smart people can get together and figure out how to address that.
How far back would you go on reparations? In other words,
look, those are really great questions.
Yeah, I know. We're going to have a discussion because that's all we do is have a frickin' discussion. Let's have a long discussion. That's what we have academics for. What about the black man in Africa who traded their fellow black men from Africa and sold them out? Do they have a responsibility to pay something? Does Europe have something because they facilitated this trade long before we were a nation? Do they have something to pay for this? If
it's a really interesting question, right?
Yeah, we should have a discussion.
Well, no, we shouldn't have a discussion. We should just understand history, right? So, like, if you read, some of the books here, one of the reasons that slavery was so intractable and so difficult to defeat is that it wasn't just an American phenomenon, right? It was a global phenomenon. The British Empire, profited from the cotton industry that was, quadrupled and, on the backs of black slaves, right? Like the cotton gin just made them work harder. It just shortened their lifespan. So it was a global problem. Maybe there should be a global solution. Maybe it should go through the UN, and a number of governments should contribute to a fund to sort of make up for the labor that was stolen and the wealth that was denied. Who knows? I don't know.
And how far back do you want to go?
I don't know. I'm just saying, let's get some smart people in the room and talk.
Slaves built most of Egypt.
Slaves built America. We only talk about America.
Oh, so you're only going to go that far back because our white privilege comes from European white privilege, which comes from slavery as well. There should be a celebration of how this country bravely took on that issue. And while other countries
didn't.
I don't see it.
I think
Again,
there is.
For the 55 years that my mouth has been duct taped because I'm a racist and my ears have been held open.
I don't think your mouth could ever be duct taped.
But I tell you, if I got to dime for every time I've been called a racist, and we're now immune to it. We don't care. We just don't care anymore because we're tired of it. That's why you keep saying, want a discussion? He's like, go. Discuss all you like.
Right.
I've had enough.
So why have you kept me here for like an hour and a half?
No, it's only been an hour.
Well, why did you keep me here for an hour
Because
if you didn't really want to talk?
They need to hear. They need to hear you. So they can go, oh, let's talk about it some more.
Right.
I want an end to the conversation.
I hear you.
I want somebody to put an offer on the table and say, if we accept this offer, the conversation is over and we can go back to creating jobs.
Yeah.
And by the way, the best reparation.
Jobs where people get paid, you mean?
No.
Not like the jobs we had in the 1700s, 1800s for black people.
Listen, we've both been married. We both know what involuntary servitude is like.
Yes, we do.
No, in order for everyone's life to get better, for opportunities to happen, black or white, you need a vibrant economy. And
No question.
I worry that the Black Lives Matter is working counter to that. That if we just take this money and destroy the engine that could actually uplift all these folks, all of us, that's what scares the hell out of me.